All right, all right, all right. Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It is 8 p.m. where I am today, and I am delighted to join you here with my tea. I've got a big smile on my face because I know we're going to get into some beautiful conversation today, and I just want to say in advance, thank you everyone for joining, for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today. So, crafting a new humanity-led world. I know that this is something that is near and dear to our hearts. So I'm really happy that you are either here live with us or rewatching. And I encourage you all to share this message with your family, your friends, your community. We're just having open dialogue, just trying to figure out, next steps, talking about some, things that are happening in the present, reflecting on some things that have happened in the past. So we're really going to have this, non-linear conversation to talk about something that is very complex and at its core very beautiful, and that is humanity. And when we show up with our hearts full, ready to do purposeful work, soulful work, this is just going to be just messages that we can leave behind for others and hopefully share in the current moment. So thank you everyone for taking time to watch us today. We are going to focus on how we've grown and our uniqueness within that growth, individually, collectively, as a company, and how that's all been informed and led by our personal equity lenses. So before we dive in deep for today's conversation, I just want to set the stage with a short grounding meditation. And we'll have a moment of silence as well, just to recognize our human dignity and our capability to be compassionate and create peace and joy in this world. So I invite you all to leave your eyes open, or you can close them if you'd like, but for sure, let's ground our feet so you can get your center of gravity aware in your body. And you can just put your feet flat on the floor. Maybe that changes how you're sitting or standing or moving, and that lets us know that we are listening to the response there. So that's great. And just take a couple moments to intentionally connect with your breath. So if you can, stop texting folks, put your phone down, connect really right now. Use this moment to connect to your gravity, to your earth here. Breathe in and out intentionally. And scan your body. And if you feel anywhere that is still holding some tension or tightness, feel free to shake that out or send your breath there, or just send love and kindness to that area in your body. Take a couple more deep breaths. And as we reflect on our connection to this earth, our gravity pull here, we are going to channel calmness, peace, and compassion in this moment of silence. And as we continue this moment of silence, here are a few questions to consider. What does equity look like to you? What is the difference between making something equitable and crafting equity? What struggles have you had with your equity in your life, at your job, in your sphere of influence, in your world? And finally, at this moment, what do you feel your own personal equity lens might consist of? So thank you so much for reflecting. I know that we went from the gravity pull of the earth into our bodies, and now we're into our minds. And I hope that that was a nice anchoring point to kick off this open conversation. Thank you all for participating, for those of you who did participate. And if you didn't, thank you for practicing active listening as we just set the stage for this conversation here. So I just want to introduce myself briefly before I pass the mic to introduce our beautiful minds who are just going to be sharing what they've been doing these past days and their hopes for the future as well. But I just want to say thank you for joining. I'm joining here today from the mighty mountains of Patagonia, Argentina, in San Martin de los Andes, the original lands of the Mapuche people. And I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I am here to be a voice in this ever-changing digital space where technological disruption is censoring, dwarfing, and erasing diverse and provocative cultural and countercultural ecosystems. I believe we are all creative beings. We are all artists, whether we identify as artists or not. You have an inner artist who is asking to be heard as such. I believe that we have the capacity to tap into our dreams, express our visions, and manifest them in provocative ways to uphold human dignity and holistic collaboration. Yes, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams and have access to their resilience and legacy. I am here with my comrades today to remind you that you are worthy, that I am worthy, and yes, we are all worthy. These are words that I have adopted from my comrade, Matthew Reynolds, who I'm going to pass the mic to now. Thank you for sharing those words with me in the way that we've been growing our relationship. You are worthy. Thank you for reminding me that I am worthy. Matthew Reynolds, tell us a little bit about yourself before we roll into our Q&A today. Tell us the story of Matthew Reynolds.
Mariella Marie, thank you so much for pulling us in and bringing us together and allowing the space to open and blossom into what it is right now so that we can create in this present moment what it is that we're here to create through the questions that we are asking of each other, through the idea that we don't all think exactly the same, our lived experience isn't exactly the same, and that we get to put those ideas into this container with one another to pull and stretch and have them become their biggest, fullest, and brightest. And so for me, who I am, some of my own personal identifiers is I identify as a Black, same gender loving, multi-ethnic warrior. And so with that comes many different stories, many different aspects of my life that race back through my history, right? That has now, I have seen in these last 5 to 10 years to really embrace my history as my education. My past is definitely my education, and I am learning from it instead of being trapped by it, being trapped by the socialization, being trapped by the story that I keep regurgitating again and again and saying again and again that has held me down and held me back from being my authentic self. And so there's many, like I said, many of those stories. You can find those on our website at mrrconsulting.org. I know that Mariella, you put that into the chat. So it is there for folks to look at. And you can get a bit more of that story there. But for now, I think I'm going to leave it at that and let that be my introduction for today. And so thank you again, Mariella. Thank you, Orion, for being here. And thank you, those of you who are currently with us and who will be rewatching this. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Peace to you, Matthew. Orion, what is your story? Holler if you hear me. I know you're calling from Portland, Oregon today. So let us know about you.
Yes, Mariella Marie, thank you so much for helping us create this container, for facilitating this discussion. Matthew, thank you for your story. Thank you everyone in the room, as well as those who will be watching afterwards. Yes, I'm in Portland, Oregon. It is a gray, rainy day, but for whatever reason, I don't mind that. Sometimes I'm like, oh, come on, really? But it's a beautiful day. My name is Orion Bradshaw. I am a teacher. I am a facilitator of conversations. I am a performer. And more than all those things, I am a storyteller every single day. And something that I'm really passionate about right now is trying to help other people tap into that inherent virtue within themselves, because I feel like the world, our lives, tends to try to wring that out of us. Our storytelling capability that links us to every single human that is living and every single human that has roamed this earth. And something else that, as I was sort of thinking about what is my story right now, that I don't know if I've ever actually given voice to. So you're hearing it here, perhaps for the first time. I'm leaning into my identity as an elder and what that means for me. So it's like a whoa, right? That's a thing that I've always believed in. But as a younger person, I've always had sort of preconceptions or misconceptions about what it is to be an elder in the world and what responsibilities go with that. And so I'm really kind of anew thinking about how that informs how, as Matthew said, how I am inspired by the future and how I am learning from my past and how I'm creating right now with that identity, being an elder and more often than not being one of the older people in the room now, which for so long that's not been the case. And so with that, I'm always trying to find out every day. I'm trying to figure out what my growth and my expansion looks like forward. The word forward is very important to me, but I also recognize that word also limits us to which directions we can go in. So I'm trying to think about what my expansion looks like and what others' expansion can look like if we are actually echoing the universe that we are housed in, which is constantly expanding in every single direction possible. So how can we mirror the place that we live in to our fullest capability? And so, yeah, every time I've figured something out, something brand new presents itself and I have to learn all over again. So I'm navigating that world. Thanks to everyone for being here and hearing the stories.
Yes, I love that. I wrote in the chat, elders in training. And actually, I think from the moment we're born, we need to be, with that mindset, or not that we need to be. Everyone can live their own lives, of course, but it'd be nice if it were, common knowledge to be like, eventually your ass is going to be on the other side. So what, do you want to take ownership of that and respect that? Or of course we find out later in life and it's okay too. So, Orion, thank you for having that, the ambition, the trust, and the vision to follow that. So this is actually, I'm going to keep the mic on you for this first question. That of course, both of you, I would love to hear from both of you. But speaking of expansion, as you have found yourself in this space and you are marrying, the great universe, and I love that visual. Thank you for that. So tell us how you feel that you've grown as Orion, also collectively in the world that we share, and also, within the company since the last webinar, which was on June 2020. So June, well, what is today? I don't even know what time.
So what, we're coming up on 2 years?
Yes. So coming up on 2 years. And then I know these throwing a lot of questions in at one, but how has that growth been informed and led by your personal equity lens? So also, if you're joining us live, if you joined that last webinar, let us know in the chat. We'd love to know that you're here and just give you a shout out. So basically, how have you grown? How do you feel you've grown since that last conversation?
Yeah, I'm trying to tie all the things together, right? The individual, the collective, and sort of as a company, and so trying to find the threads that really meet kind of all those criteria. I think for me, where my brain and my heart is going right now is I identify myself. I know Matthew identified himself in this really powerful way, and one of my identifiers is perfectionist in recovery. So constantly being this sort of product-driven person in school and constantly chasing perfection and constantly chasing mastery. And again, I don't want to poo-poo that process. I think that process, keyword process, can be really important to growth and achieving what our goals are. And yet where I am right now, I'm learning how to, through my equity lens, and I can get into more detail as we go, but my equity lens has really taught me how to, along with, let's be honest, the pandemic has taught me how to slow down and not be so product driven and sort of be more humanity led. One of these things that we're talking about in this space. And in order to be more humanity led and in order to be more equitable and be less product driven as our society sort of wants us to be, I myself have to slow down, and I have to recognize when I need rest. I have to recognize when I need to take the take the mic or take the attention off of myself, and allow other people to shine around me, and how can I either facilitate that process through discussion, conversation, just deep listening, giving them what they need, and sort of achieving my needs through other people's success, while also saying, and this was something I used to be so not good at, while also setting my own boundaries and setting my limits and saying, today has to be about me. I still love all of y'all that are maybe reaching out, and I'm taking the day off because I want to get some good rest, and I want to come at tomorrow with my fullest capacity. And if I work too much today, I won't have that tomorrow. And then I'm not being that fully expanding person. I'm sort of shrinking. I'm continuing that process of shrinking myself because I'm not treating myself well. So it's constantly a balance, right? And I think I embrace like 3 different things. But for me, this growth through my equity lens and through this work that has been happening over the last couple of years, my thesis in that is learning how to recover from perfectionism while also staying ambitious, staying goal-driven and process-driven, and just paying more attention to people, being more aware of what's going on around me everywhere. So thank you for the question, Mariella.
Yes, I love that. And I want to dive in on that and unpack a lot of that, but I'll have to like come back on another webinar to just crack open some of that. Right now, I want to hear from Matthew. Can you let us know how you've grown since this last webinar in June 2020?
Wow. So there's this cacophony that is like happening inside of me right now, as far as, no, we want to be talked about. We want to be talked about. No, we want to be talked about. There's like all these different aspects of who I am that are like wanting to come forward and finally be seen, I think is one of the biggest things. So when I started this, someone who is here right now, Trina Bolden Fields, was my business and life coach, and was really helping me recognize within myself, definitely recognize within myself the worthiness that you talked about, Mariella, the worthiness that I was so deserving of. So when I started this, I would say on the worthiness meter that maybe I was about 50-60%, somewhere in there. When this whole thing started, I knew that it felt right in my instincts. And as I've been healing from the gaslighting of our world and of this, especially being born and raised in the United States, and my instincts and my feeling of being part of this earth started coming back, and I started realizing a lot more of those things, then I started really seeing around me really clearly what an equity lens could really do, not only for myself, but for other people. And so when people ask me, Matthew, should everybody craft their equity lens? I'm like, yeah, everybody should craft their equity lens. Does it mean that everybody will, and that I'm out there trying to get everybody to do it? No, I'm not. I feel that it's our personal journey. That is one of the key aspects of it, is that it comes from your own personal lived experiences. So that's where the past is our education really started to drive home in me, that it was like, instead of using it as shackles of shame or blame or unworthiness, that I wasn't deserving, etc., I really truly started to embrace my past and look at it. And that's where the question, how much of your thinking is your thinking, comes from. That it's like, when I looked at that past and I started looking at situations that I was finding myself in, that wasn't the real me. That wasn't the authentic me. A lot of it wasn't seeing other people's humanity. It was trying to rush and get these particular things achieved, this success level up, raised up, me being at a particular level in comparison to other people. And it's like, no, just like I had in my theater classes where we all sat in a circle together, right? Or stood in a circle together, where the information was going back and forth and seeing each other's humanity, even as we were creating these other characters, bringing these characters to life. I was still asking my students to look at the humanity of that character so that you could portray it as authentically and to the playwright's truth, that character out on stage. And so then it really started, all that past education started coming forward and was like, yeah, see, this is what society is all about. This is what humanity is all about. And then to tie in a little bit with what Orion was saying about slowing things down, I ask myself on the daily, and I look around and it's like, what the hell are you all rushing for? What am I rushing for? What am I trying to get to? Why am I just like go, 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 go? For what? And for who? Really? Our time, our personal time in this existence that we have is the most precious thing that any one of us has. So why am I trying to rush through it? To try to achieve the status quo or supremacy culture's ideas of success? How am I even beginning to see my own personal humanity if I'm giving it all away to only one factor, time? Not to mention all the other things that we get fed and indoctrinated into and that we internalize, right? About how we are supposed to be in this world because of these physical appearances, or because of how I was raised, or where I was raised, or what I have right now in my pockets, or around me in my home, that I have a home, that I don't have a home. All these other outside things that keep telling me what I'm supposed to be, when in all actuality, I'm a human being. First and foremost, we all are. So for me, that is what's been happening over the last 2 years, is a strength, a groundedness, a truth, an effortless authenticity of my own humanity, and recognizing that in other people as well as we move along. And so thank you, Mariella Marie, for that effortless authenticity, because that was a phrase that you coined, and it feels oh so right inside of me. So that's how I've been expanding into my biggest, fullest, and brightest over the last couple of years. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So I got to ask, since both of you all are hinting on it, can you share your equity lens, your current equity lens? And I know we were sharing it yesterday together. This is the beautiful thing. This is my personal favorite thing about equity lens. Like, changes all the time. As things change all the time, as change is the only constant. Like, oh, and yeah, of course, it makes sense. Mine has since changed since yesterday.
Please share. Please share.
Okay. But I really do want to hear, both of you today, because you gave us that beautiful backstory, and we want to hear what your equity lens is. So, but I will share, since you did pass the mic to me. Let me see if I can find it. I wasn't really prepared to share it. But I'm happy to share. All right. I love it. Okay, I got it. Good. This is good because I put the date. This is important. So equity lens, April 4th, 2022. Or what is it, 2020? Oh my gosh, I don't even know is it 2022? Okay, thank you. All right. I am crafting a world that taps into the power, resilience, magic, and stories shared and stored in water. We are water. We need water. We are power. I am crafting a world that centers compassion, creativity, curiosity, and active listening to explore and share the great mystery of life, love, and our interconnectedness with all beings. I am remembering with every breath that I am worthy and that you are worthy, that we are all worthy of love, respect, and freedom as we nurture our individual and collective liberation. I am crafting my ancestors' wildest dreams. I am poetry in motion. I am grateful to be here together with you. So I know that, and this is also a good entryway on how I got involved. Matthew Reynolds invited me to sit in, and I was my mind was blown. And the first thing I think is, how do we get this in Argentina? How do we share this in Argentina? And actually, we are sharing it, because one of your prompts was to come back sharing some of the racial history of where we are at the current time. And I'm here. So I was like, I could go back and say, well, the current history of California, racial history in California or in Georgia, both places I lived in lots of my life. But I was like, let me check out, let me go deeper here. I'm in Patagonia. So actually now I'm sharing the message with other folks here. Like, did you know this is the history? And what do you think? And how can we, so that is a fruit of the sitting down and learning with you and activating that into my life. So I just wanted to thank you both for the beautiful work that you all are doing. I'm inspired, and again, I'm honored to be here. So Matthew, what's your equity lens today?
Thank you for sharing that, for sure. Oh my gosh. So this is number 19 that I have that I'm sharing with you today. I am crafting a world in which my humanity recognizes your humanity and places our humanity in the forefront of our hearts and minds. The world I am crafting is guided by powerful skills such as integrity, vulnerability, responsibility, grace, and unconditional love. May we all recognize that the past is our education, the future is our inspiration, and that the present moment is our creation, so that we may support 7 generations to come, so that they may be their biggest, fullest, and brightest.
Thank you, Matthew. Orion, can you share your equity lens with us?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to read, I think I'm on, I don't know, I've lost count, but I'm probably on 14 or something like that. And I'm actually going to read one that was a few equity lenses ago, and I'm going to tell you why after I read it. All right. I am crafting a world wherein I see your humanity before and after everything else, and how it reflects my own, where the pursuit of perfection does not overshadow the pursuit of being human. And with an air of unconditional love, we will glide weightless on the breeze, though not without effort, because it will be our humanity-led deeds that give our radical love wings, building towards 7 generations from now, truly and truthfully living for one another, forward together. So I read that one because, short story, because I already told Mariella and Matthew this, because I left my phone at work today. That never happens, y'all. Okay, and so my last couple of equity lenses have been on my phone, saved as a snapshot, so I can more easily look at it every day. If I keep it on a Google Doc on the computer, I noticed I wasn't looking at it as often. So I didn't actually transpose my last couple onto this Google Doc on my computer because I wanted it more on hand. Well, left my phone at work today. That's its own sort of like cultural, like, what's happening to me? My life is starting to fall apart around me. So I'm going to go get it after this webinar, and also embracing the fact that, like, okay, I'm going to check back in with where I've been, because that's literally all I can do in this moment. And also think to myself about, wow, here are some of the images and things that I'm embracing now that I wasn't able to share in this particular lens, but that might come up in the conversation. So being vulnerable, being real with y'all. Thank you.
Yes, I don't think that there's a such thing as coincidence. I think that everything happens for a reason. And I love the strategy on like taking a screen grab so you can see it and just bring it, like having that access. I love that. Another thing I wanted to comment on that I think is really interesting. Actually, this actually leads into the next question I wanted to ask. So what are some challenges you've seen or experienced when it comes to continuously reshaping and sharing your equity lenses with yourself and others? I mean, Orion, you just mentioned one challenge, right? Maybe, you know, your social dependence on technology and what that does in this situation, for example. But I would love for you to open that up a little more, especially concerning the past few years of heightened global confusion and civil unrest, just to bring some like reality, like, you know, what are some challenges you've seen or experienced when it comes to continuously reshaping and sharing your equity lenses with yourself and with others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that question. Thank you. I think a couple of challenges that have presented themselves are, you know, one, this work with a capital W, as I like to say, it's pretty thankless, and you know, I might not hear about it if I'm doing it well, if I'm affecting folks. I might not hear about it. People might just be affected and kind of go on their way. But I'm going to hear about it if I have affected someone negatively, or if someone feels like I've dropped the ball. I'm going to hear about it pretty quick. And so my equity lens gets tied into that. There's that imposter syndrome of like, is my equity lens really serving my community right now? There's that lack of belief in myself, and so consequently in my equity lens sometimes. So I deal with that. I also deal with forgetting, you know what I mean? Forgetting to check in with it in certain situations, especially volatile situations or heightened situations. I might forget that I have it for however long.
Real
right?
talk.
You know, and then when there's a moment of stillness or breath, bro, you've got your equity lens, check back in. It's been a minute. You have to check back in, right? Holding myself accountable to it is a challenge. And then the final challenge that comes up, and Matthew can attest to this with me, is, you know, sometimes is Matthew and I read our equity lenses at the beginning of every meeting, or when we're checking in with one another. And sometimes I have been like, Matthew, I'm going to read this equity lens, but it doesn't feel true to me anymore. I've moved on from it, or I'm in a different place for whatever reason. And I don't have access to those words right now. So I know that I'm shifting. I know that I'm expanding or changing, and I don't know how to put that into words right now. So what I'm going to do is read my equity lens as it is and has been, knowing that this is not actually my fully authentic self coming through in these words right now, but I don't have an answer for it at the moment. So please, you know, you thank the person for their grace. You know, like, I'm growing, I'm learning, and I just don't know into what yet. So those are a few ways that I have found some challenges with my equity lens, knowing that at the end of the day, if I do check back with my equity lens, it will provide me with a foundation and clarity and support in all of those things that I mentioned, all of those challenges.
What's like, and being human in the equity lens, right? So we are crafting it, and we are also like, you know, shedding our skin daily and coming up with new dreams and things and conversations daily. So we're always, you know, and so you are not alone in that. And I think I want to also, you know, just highlight that it's important to say that and to state that, at least with yourself, if no one else, and especially with people that you are, you know, building careful and soulful relationships with, because then it's easy to start to, oh my God, it just goes into performative and maybe even soulless at its worst, you know, demonstration. And later on, I want to ask, you know, what you all think about performative, you know, equitable practices. If we have time, we might need a whole nother hour for that. But, you know, I find that, you know, Orion, you're in those moments, you seem to be at a crossroads where it's easier to just be like, I don't need to tell you anything. I don't even need to tell myself anything. Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't even, you know, like, I don't know. It's easy to just like step away, and it's easy to go, you know, Matthew Reynolds, you were saying, going like we're all in a rush, to do the thing, to go where, to do what. And so it's easy to say, I'd rather just go do that thing that's going to take me all the way over there. And I have to think about it. I don't have to communicate with my authentic self. But in that moment, I just envisioned that, Matthew is there to hold space with you in that moment that you're saying, I feel like I've grown, I've expanded. The words are beautiful that you're choosing, because also you're not like, even though mentally maybe you were by yourself, but you have arrived to the moment where you're like, you're not going to abuse yourself by saying, oh, woe is me, I'm just in this, I'm lost. No, it's like, I'm lost, but I'm okay. Because, this is, solitude is different from loneliness. I don't feel alone. And I'm in a place where I feel lost, but I'm trusting. And, thank you, Matthew, for being here to help me confirm that out loud. Matthew, what have been some challenges you've seen or experienced when it comes to continuously reshaping and sharing your equity lenses with yourself and with others?
It's a great question, and yet it doesn't really apply, because I came to terms in my last year of being an educator and being in the classroom that to deal with the bureaucracy, to deal with the fact that I was seeing more clearly again and again how some of the systems that I was within were hurtful and harmful to students, right? And that I was doing what I could to shine a light on those things, to bring those things forward so that we could shift them, right? That I really got to this point of, I just don't subscribe to that ideology. I don't need to sit here and drag you kicking and screaming to a different way of thinking. I don't need to sit here and use vernacular that's vitriol and like calling you names or saying these things about you, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they did this, or whatever kind of thing. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need that to be part of my energy. So as I was shifting, and how I said before that Trina was really pulling these ideas and this out of me, that this is my offering to humanity right now, right? That really became my way of being. So I think the biggest thing now is to like be able to give grace to others and to myself, in the sense of that idea coming back to time again, right? I feel that crafting your equity lens needs to happen consecutively in 3 days, right? Back to back. And the reason being is that we have internalized so many other stories that aren't our truth, that if we give more time, those stories quickly come back in front of us and want to take the center stage and be like, no, this is the way that you think and feel. Whereas going through the workshop, you are actually uprooting some of these deeply rooted, internalized racial oppressions, internalized superiority, internalized capitalism, these ideas that were not yours in the first place. How much of your thinking is your thinking? And we're doing our best to not refill it back in with supremacy culture, with the status quo's ideas, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing my best, especially when I've seen some folks out there who are putting blackface on white power, right? So this idea that I am a person of color and I am of a particular melanin. And so now this EDI realm, EDIA, JEDI, EDIB, et cetera, has become a monetary, right? It's now making 8 billion plus a year for folks, et cetera, that some folks are stepping into this arena and they're still upholding supremacy culture. And they don't necessarily see that, because maybe these things they uprooted, they've just healed them back over with supremacy culture. And I don't want to do that. And so I really enjoy taking my time. And that's one of the things. There are a lot of organizations are like, well, what do you mean it's 3 days and they're consecutively? That's really hard to do. It's really hard to bring all these people together for these 3 days. And then I'll throw out the question. So was there a day last week that you worked over 8 hours on your job? Oh my gosh. There was a day I was there 12 hours one day, or, oh, I worked 10 hours, or I'm consecutively working 10 or 9 hours a day, or I put in a 14-hour day and da 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 da. And I was like, so over the 3 days, you're putting in 9 hours. 9 hours for you. You're not rushing to achieve something for someone else's profit or gain or status. You are practicing what I call soul care for you, to get to your truth vision, to get to your authenticity. Is that not worth 9 hours of your time? And so those are the things I think, if I have to put it into a perspective of what I'm coming up against. But for me personally, you know, if I'm gonna talk it, I'm gonna walk it these days, right? Because that's my life, and that's what I'm feeling, and I'm really stretching into that and feeling that expansion happening. I truly want to leave for 7 generations from now, them looking at their history books. Orion, you brought this up yesterday, them looking at their history books and being like, wow, woo, I'm glad that humanity got through that phase and that we're at where we're at now, because that shit that our past used to go through, and like how they used to talk to each other and the things that they upheld as dear and this and that. I'm so glad that we're not doing all of that, and that we're seeing each other's humanity first and foremost, that we are leading with our humanity, that we are creating a world that is humanity led. That is what I want to make sure is happening as we move forward. Thank
yes.
you.
Okay. Yes. I'm going to bridge it into this next question. But before I ask this question, I want to let our live audience know that we want to hear from you. So I'm going to throw this question out. That'll give you some time to drop some questions in the chat. And if anything comes up in the chat when everyone's finishing with their responses, I would love to raise these to today's conversation. So if you're here live with us and you have anything you want to ask, even if it's, you know, what are you having for dinner tonight, drop it in the chat. We want to hear from you. That'll be reminding everyone to have their dinner. Okay, so Matthew Reynolds, I'll hold the mic on you since you were touching on this. Future thinking, next thinking. You know, I love to remind us of our presence and the beauty of being here in our present moment. But you were also, you know, reminding us that what we do in this present moment affects, you know, 7 generations ahead, and what we are doing probably, you know, started seven generations ago. So we are completing that cycle. So if we could jump into the future, and you're able to have a peek into the world 100 years from now. So we're 100 years from today, and Matthew Reynolds can peek in and be like, okay, what would be left behind as a result of our equity work today? So I'm speaking of like, what artifacts would you hope to find?
Yes.
To see, to touch, to smell, to taste, you know, or to contemplate on, to feel. What artifacts would you hope to find?
So the future is to be our inspiration. Yes, we are to be inspired by it. Nowadays, more and more people are talking, oh my gosh, global warming, this and that, fossil fuels, etc. The world, it's disintegrating. We're killing it. And it's all, the future is bleak and doesn't look like inspiration at all. When I peek in 100 years, because of folks crafting their equity lens, this tool that future generations pick up and form it to their grip and their ideologies and the things that are going on with them, leaving the factor of being humanity-led first and foremost, right? I'm going to peek in, and the artifacts that I'm going to see is there's no more money. It's not necessary. It's not needed. There's choice for sure. So if there's any kind of addictions happening, et cetera, there are resources for folks, right? But it is a choice. But those resources are there, and it's not some law and somebody's religion saying you can't do that or that can't be, right? And that we've balanced ourselves out with this world again, and that we are of it and it is of us, right? the water, the salt water, the stardust that makes us up. Those things are being understood more and being led forward. There isn't this need to be higher than anyone else. We are all part of the human race. We are all here, and all of our unique stories are so celebrated and loved and embraced. That's what I'm seeing when I peek into the future. That's what crafting your equity lens and people having this new way of seeing the world, crafting a world that is humanity led, that's what it will begin to look like. And that's just me, right? That's just my look into the future. What are some of your ideas of the future?
Yes, Orion, pick that up. We want to hear from you.
Ooh, heavy. Let's see. I'm thinking of, okay, so back when I was working with Matthew in his final year of his public education classroom, I was getting my Master of Arts in teaching. He was my coordinating teacher. And I would, in order to ground myself, center myself on the way to work, I had kind of a long drive coming from the countryside. I'd be listening to Deepak Chopra, some other people, and I'd be trying to ground myself and focus on my breathing. And there was some great stuff in there. I mean, of course, you know, these people, they are spiritual, spiritual leaders and practitioners of healing for a reason. And yet there were certain things that were said that I'm like, I don't have access to this. I can't wait to get back to this at some point, revisit this. And so as I've been subbing a little bit this year in Portland schools and doing a lot more education stuff, I've been reconnecting with some of those meditations. And something that came up the other day in one of Deepak's meditations was that awareness, the word awareness. He said, I'm paraphrasing, our awareness, our consciousness is our soul. It is our identity. And so I think if I look into the future, I see humanity, human beings, working more intentionally on their awareness, not just learning facts, learning math and science and all that stuff. That's really important. I'm not putting that down, but working on their awareness, and not just through devices. I mean, case in point, my day today, leaving my phone at work and then feeling so alone in the wilderness for a split second and be like, no. And like, that's telling, you know, and I'm working on awareness. And yet I was locked away from my phone, and I had this mini sort of breakdown of like, oh no, that totally sideswipes my day. What am I going to do? Right. So then going inward and saying, Orion, why do you need it? You have other resources. What else can you do with that time away from your phone? Right. I have everything I need. I'm working on my awareness, which is my soul and my identity. And I hope that in 100 years, yes, of course, tech will help us be aware of more things, be aware of the world. I understand that. But we got to reconnect with ourselves and each other. And if I'm talking about a school classroom and maybe even going out to dinner and seeing folks at a table, these, I would hold mine up. I don't have it though, right? These don't help. They're an obstacle. Because with awareness comes availability. That's one of my mantras this past year is I want to be available. I don't want to owe anyone anything. That's different. I want to be available for folks. I want to choose, right? I think, Matthew, you just said choice is important. I think choice is super important. When you take away someone's choice, you put them in a box or a cell or whatever you want to call it. So I want us to more intentionally work on our awareness, which makes us more available to everyone else around us, because we're constantly, that energy that we send out is constantly pulsing, not only through us, but through the people next to us. And we're aware of that. And it's a more intentional exchange of energy and ideas and truth. And it's shifting and changing every day. And we don't settle. We don't settle for where we're at. We're constantly seeking the new, not just out here, but within ourselves and in each other. Starting locally, maybe rippling out globally, right? We don't have to take on the world in one day, nor should we.
Nor can we.
Nor can't exactly. Thank you, Mariella. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Oof.
This is beautiful. Ah, yes, thank the goddesses that we are here today to just go through all of this. We are running out of time for now, but you know, the big question of what is time? Time is a beautiful gift. And although we'll be ending this virtual talk in a couple minutes, you know, the work continues at your own pace, in your own time, and hopefully we are giving ourselves the time and the grace to do that. So I don't see any questions coming up. Let's see here. I do actually have one here. Okay, Beth writes, I realize as you're all talking about lens that I'm not necessarily intentional about how I look at things. Can you say more about the idea of lenses, please?
Yes, Beth, great question. And it's exactly what you put in there about not being intentional about the ways in which I look at myself and I look at the world, right? And so when I was pulling this offering out of my being, that was one of the things that kept coming up from my past, how other people viewed me, looked at me, and came up with these ideas of me, and how I had been socialized into doing the same with other people. I see you wearing a particular outfit or such clothing, or I see you in this situation, or over here, I see you in this car, I see you in this neighborhood having these things, etc., etc. So now I'm formulating this whole thing, right? And now I see you in a particular way, so I don't need to meet you. I know everything about you because I've seen it. And that's not an ableist statement. I would love to have someone who doesn't have that visual see. Those other senses are heightened as well. And I believe that we as a society have heightened those other aspects, and that supremacy culture has leaked into everything, right? In a way that it doesn't matter if it's just because I'm using this metaphor of seeing, that we still don't feel, smell, taste those other things that are out there, right? They're still part of it. It's still palpable. So that's why for me, a lens, because I want us to see each other's humanity first and foremost. I want us to be able to feel that clearly from one another. And so that idea of a lens is really important for me, at least, in making sure that what we are looking at and how we view ourselves and others goes through that lens of humanity first and foremost, which also leads for me into you might think that this is kind of a segue, but I'm going to throw it out there for the next webinar kind of thing. But Japanese forest bathing, right? The Japanese go out into the forests and they use a multitude, they use their senses continually as they bathe and are out in nature, feeling tree bark, feeling grasses and other things, and, you know, maybe putting something in their mouth and tasting it, seeing, closing their eyes and listening, smelling, taking deep breaths. They're bathing in the forest. When's the last time we bathed like that in something that was nourishing to us? More often than not, if we find ourselves in an urban setting, there are youth in urban settings that have never possibly even been to some place that has real grass. Their local playground might be that chopped up tire, spray painted green or dyed green kind of thing that they play on. Maybe they walk by a tree on the street, but can they smell that tree? Do they reach out and feel its bark? Do they pick up those leaves? So what are we seeing in the world? What lens are we looking through? So great question. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And Beth, the only thing I'll add to that, because Matthew, thank you. First off, I do not have good eyesight, y'all. I'm wearing contacts right now. They are strong. I wear strong glasses at night and in the morning. So I know what it's like to walk through the world with this sort of like, when I hear the word lens, I think my eyesight. And what I really appreciate about the equity lens, the personal equity lens, is that it is a full body experience. It is a full body process. One does not need the use of their eyesight to have an equity lens and walk through the world and be in community with folks with an equity lens, right? We can sit in a circle and we can close our eyes and we can breathe together. Thereby, we are not using our eyesight. We're using every other sense in order to build community with each other. That is, right, arguably part of using an equity lens to build that community through breathing, through collaboration. So the only thing I want to add is that, for me, my equity lens is not just these and how I have to deal with them every day. It's this, right? It's everything that I have the ability to use as an able-bodied person. So again, it's using my entire body, what I have at my disposal, to expand my awareness and add to this world in whatever way I can.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna have forest bathing. I'm gonna do that this weekend. If y'all can make it down here to Patagonia by the weekend, I'll save you a seat in the forest. Seriously though, I'm gonna look into this because this is totally my jam. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. And Orion, thank you for sharing just the highlighting the importance of the senses and how you experience the world through your senses in the most holistic way that you can. I can do a whole 24-hour talk about how we're numbing our senses, and that's one of the key things happening here. So the more we can be in touch with our senses, all of them, and explore, maybe there are more, who knows. Okay, Holly writes, no questions. Well, lots, but none to write at the moment. Just love and gratitude. Thank you, three beautiful beings. Thank you so much, Holly. All right, so we're actually at our time. I don't see any more questions coming up. So I'd love to just, land this Earth ship and with some closing words. I know that Matthew, you've prepared a reading. And so I'd love to pass the mic to you before we wrap up today's conversation.
Thank you so much, Mariella, for that. Yes. And as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot to pull that up. But this is the way in which we bring our 3 days together for crafting your equity lens to a beginning. So we stress from day one now that it is not the end, right? That we've come together because there's so much now to do. Reading your equity lens every day, making sure that you are holding each other accountable and others to it. And so this really struck me as some words that I hold dear to my heart now and try to listen to and hear every day as I'm moving forward. And this is by Yrsa Daley Ward. It's from her latest book, The How, Notes on the Great Work of Meeting Yourself. And thank you, Orion, for gifting me this book. It has brought much to my life. So Yrsa Daley Ward says, our old habits are ingrained, worn in, soft, as are the thoughts that created them. We deserve as much grace as possible in reworking them. Rest in the promise that new pathways will appear to you in the midst of these new practices, often when you least expect it. At times, it is a great feat to stay open and willing against the growing scenes of stress and difficulty, but it is all you really need in order to begin. We begin slowly, as the largest, most powerful things do.
Thank you for those words. Can I get a yeah? All right. Oh my goodness. I don't want this to end, but well, impermanence is real. And as we have learned from this whole conversation, we got to flow with change. Change is constant. And just to connect some dots there with the beautiful reading that you just shared, Matthew, that touches on the importance of beginnings. Orion, what can we do today to start? How can we use today as, another jump off point? I'd love to just get some food for thought from you before we close today.
Yeah, I think Mariella, thank you so much. Gratitude, Matthew. Thank you. Thank you to everyone in this space. So I guess what I want to throw into the circle, as we say, is a call to action. And I do have it kind of off to the side here because, Matthew read something. I am always inspired by Matthew. I am always inspired by Use of Daily Word almost every day. And so I'm like, all right, let's get some pros into this world. But it's a call to action because so much of what we do, this work with a capital W, is based in action. I want to give permission to everyone in this space that, as Yersa says, it's okay to begin slowly, just like the earth itself. That's soul care, because we all come from our hometown, our mother. We also come from our ancestors and from an almost unfathomable lineage of human beings from all around the world. So we are all from this one planet, from this galaxy, from this universe. So now I wanna come back down to planet Earth and reground us with this statement that ally is a verb. It's not a badge, it's not a title, it's a verb. And it's okay to personalize what your small, everyday, bite-sized choose will look like in your actions. We say small, everyday, bite-sized choose. Those are your actions, okay? Base these choose in actions, in verbs. Even if that verb, that action is to breathe, to hydrate, to rest, to have a brand new conversation with a brand new person, to listen first and listen deeply, all right? The verb doesn't have to be change the world, change myself. You don't have to do that today. Start small, start every day, start with a bite-sized chew, okay? If you start with yourself, and I put it on myself too, if I start with myself, slowly, steadily, consistently, it will have a ripple effect and it will affect others in your sphere. It's okay to start with yourself. It will ripple out and we're gonna move forward, y'all, but in all directions. So we hope that folks will lean into this call to action with us in our 3-day workshop if you have not done so already, because there is always more learning and growing and living to do. Thank you.
Yes. I love that. Crafting a new humanity-led world. Crafting a new humanity-led world. I'm feeling the color blue right now. I'm feeling like deep and mysterious and nourishing and beautiful like the ocean. So I send that to everyone here who's listening. Thank you all for participating. Please continue to have this conversation within your own being. So this dialogue within yourselves, that ripple effect, as we're saying, is happening. We are crafting a new humanity-led world. Thank you everyone for being here today. I look forward to rewatching this. I hope that you all will as well, and share it with your family, your friends, your strangers, your neighbors, your students, your elders, your elders in training. And let's move forward. We'll see you on the next one, everyone.